Top of the day to you. First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. Entered the winning for the long haul, baby. Listen, there was a conference a couple of weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago, called Just Heal Bro. And it was spearheaded, if you will, besides the people from Coppin, by a noted actor, Lamman Rucker. And so today's guest, we couldn't have picked a better guest. It's his mom. Can you believe it? Let's bring mom to the stage.
Blessings, how are you?
Blessed by the best. No need to be stressed. Keep my head to the sky. No need to cry because ain't nobody going to listen no way. Malaya, Rucker, Opara Bia.
Hey, you said it right. Excellent.
All right. How are you today?
I am great. I'm wonderful. As you say, always blessed. Every day above ground is a good day. And
So,
especially when it's warm. So it's supposed to be 80 degrees today. So I'm charged up. I like that warm weather.
I'm loving it. You see, I got my Afrocentric gear on to pay homage to you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Nice garb.
So, what do you do?
That's a loaded question. I describe myself, usually I use maybe just two names, Nana Malaya, but I will say that I'm an artist, an activist, and an educator. And then if you want to go further, I'm a director, I'm a producer, I'm a choreographer. Yes, I'm a poet, I'm a spoken word artist. I teach everybody from elders all the way down to college and even down to preschool. I'm also an interfaith minister. So I'm a talent scout, a life coach. So we could go on from there. But I'm definitely a game changer.
On the subway, I dug the dude digging on me, but the dude was caught up in a massive confusion as to who I was. He thought he was trying to see. But you see me knowing me, black, proud, and determined to be free, could plainly see my enemy. Yes, 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 I know him. I once slaved for him, body and soul, and made him a pile of black gold off the sweat of my labor. He stole his game is old. We've broken the mental hole. Things must change. There's no limit to our range. He could never understand the new black man. Let alone see us riding every day, riding on the subway, IND, BMT, IRT. He stares endlessly, blinking, blink, 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 blink. He's on the brink, about to sink. I ask you, shall I help him? Can he be saved? No, no, no. Next stop, 125th Street. Do you know what that is?
Absolutely. I've worked with the Last Poets for many, many years. So I'm really, really pleased you chose that one. As an artist, I'm really focused and have always been focused on content. And content is so important when it comes to us. Who we are, how we're presented, how we're represented has been extremely important from time immemorial. So those are a group of brothers. And of course, we have plenty of other artists who have made it their purpose to put positive information and presentations out here.
I'm
And
just
more
curious.
of them.
Are you going to share anything with us today?
Oh, sure. Um, One of my favorite short poems is something I wrote in elementary school. It's very short, but it goes like this. Racism is a disease which causes death. Now, I wrote that in about fifth grade. So, I was paying attention to what was going on because as I've continued to grow and learn, I've just seen all the devastation that behavior has exemplified around the world. And so those kinds of things are important for people to pay attention to. Another one I've shared with you before comes from Listervelt Middleton. It's called The Origin of Things. We were the first to write, the first to read. Humanity began with the African seed. For 100,000 years, we were here alone, and then others were born. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see, understand what you hear, because minute by minute, hour by hour, If you lose your history, you lose your power, because Pythagoras, Aristotle, Galileo too, they got credit from what they learned from you. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear, because minute by minute, hour by hour, if you lose your history, you
Lose
lose
your power.
your power. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to take away history, they're trying to erase history. And I think it was John Henry Clark that said, history is a current event. So history is constantly happening all the time, including now. We're a part of history. And people will remember what we're doing, what we're saying, what we've exemplified, just like we have for those who came before us. So education is key, because we what we know does make a difference. And so it's important that we recognize even things like the GPS that we use right now was created by an African American woman. Dr. Gladys West created the GPS. Dr. Gladys West created the GPS. Dr. Gladys West created the GPS. And she's still alive to this day. The cell phone was created. Two brothers have been given credit, and one is Henry Sampson. I mentioned his name because what's the phone that we have? A Samsung phone, so many things. Even as we get into the internet, 5G, when you look into the history, all of these things were created by folks of African descent. Again, we had the first reading and writing and math, the African origins of that. Even the game of chess has its origins on the continent of Africa. So there's so much there that so many riches. People who have exemplified their skills to the top. Once we get in a field, we take it over. I mean, even from Tiger Woods with golf and the golf tee, the small little tee that keeps that ball out of the grass, that was created by a Black person. I mean, just key elements of everything. We're told that someone else was given credit for electricity, but it was Lewis Latimer that created the filament in the light bulb that keeps the light lit. That sucker kept going out. They couldn't figure out why, and he figured out. And I know everybody got some light bulbs in their homes that don't ever go out. Them suckers will stay on forever and ever and ever. But so many things, and even the practical things that we need, from the iron to the refrigerator. We'd have no ice cream if it wasn't for a brother. You know what I'm saying? I might not like the cold, but I like me some ice cream, Everything from shoe lasting machine that keeps our shoes literally connected to the soles of the shoe. So many things were created by us. An easy website to check is 100 Black Inventors, and it'll just show you so many things that are, I'd say, of things that we use right now, including when you push your doorbell from your phone, that ring light, that's created by a sister. You know what I'm saying? So all those people that are watching their Amazon packages getting stolen off their porch, they can see it. They might not be able to do anything about it, but they can see it because of a sister. So many things. And remember the film Hidden Figures, which was a wonderful, wonderful film that showed us that it was the Black women, they called them human computers, that were able to not only save the whole space industry, but they got those astronauts that were going around and around and around. They didn't know, they didn't have the right calculations to bring them back to Earth. They'd still be up there if it wasn't for Katherine Johnson and a couple other sisters that were exemplified in that film. And Katherine Johnson just passed just a few years ago. So these people have been alive in our lifetime. But just think of how much history has been hidden and stolen that from everyday things that we don't get to know about. And because I also work in education, there aren't a lot of these things exemplified in history. They give very little information. People might have one line or one paragraph about Rosa Parks, one line, one paragraph about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, one line, one paragraph about Harriet Tubman. And there are people, because history lesson has not been complete, there are young people and adults that have gone out thinking that Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks existed in the same time frame of history. They might have both been women warriors, but it wasn't the same time frame at all. And we have too much of that going on.
I wanted to jump in here. You lived in Brooklyn. You grew up in Brooklyn.
Well, actually, I always claim New York is my north and DC is my south.
Okay.
But in between there, I got dropped into Pittsburgh, and most of my schooling was actually done in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And even though I was very upset about that initially, because my father worked for the Amsterdam News as a writer and editor and a photographer, he got a job at the Pittsburgh Courier. So I had planned to go to high school of performing arts because I always knew that I wanted to be an artist. And even though I did not go to high school of performing arts, by being in Pittsburgh, I ended up working with August Wilson, who is now renowned, the most renowned playwright in Black theater. I ended up working with a woman named Jerry Allen, a very phenomenal jazz musician, pianist. And unfortunately, she's deceased now. And also Phyllis Hyman was there. There were a whole lot of people there at that particular time. And we were all creating what they call the Black arts movement, especially through the 60s and 70s, where we were literally changing the game. I just did a tribute to Amiri Baraka because Leroy Jones and Mary Baraka, based in Newark, New Jersey, and at that time it was called New Ark, his work has been exemplified everywhere. And I've had a chance to work with him. So we wanted to honor him and his work. And his son is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey right now. And that brother is changing the game. Ross is definitely changing the game.
So look, I wanted to throw this name at you. In your time in Brooklyn, did you ever come across Jatu Wausi?
Jatu Wausi. Now, by name, I'm not sure, but I might know him by face because there's a lot of us that knew each other back then, and times have changed, the names have changed, but that name itself doesn't ring a bell.
Well, he's gone with the ancestors now, but he taught me about Weeksville. And so we do these Black Wall Street Awards. Of course, we're recognizing you this Friday at Howard University. We celebrate Black entrepreneurs and professionals, as well as the people who support them, regardless of race. To date, we've recognized over 2,700 people in 9 major U.S. cities. But I mentioned them because we did 2 Black Wall Streets in Brooklyn, one at Brooklyn Borough Hall, but also one at the Weeksville Heritage Center. Okay. And I came to learn that just like Seneca Village in Manhattan in between 82nd and 89th, independent Black community, Weeksville in Brooklyn was similar, founded by James Weeks. So there's so much history, but I'd be remiss if I didn't take us back to the day you and I met outside of Just Heal Bro, led by your son or one of your sons at Baltimore's own Coppin State University.
Yeah, that was an awesome day, and I really appreciate both your energy, your perseverance, and also your respect. You were there as a person to, of course, be mindful of what was going on, to let our community know about what's happening in our community, because the good things are not focused on. The good things oftentimes get pushed into the shadows. So we have to be the ones to bring out the good things that are happening in our communities and what is working, because sometimes people think things aren't working. And so I was glad you were there for that, because Just Heal Bro is one of those things that not only has gone around the United States, it's gone out of the United States as well. And everyone who attends feels very empowered by the program.
Do you go to everyone?
No, I don't. I was in Baltimore because now living in DC, of course, Baltimore is just, a hop, step, and a jump. And I wanted to make sure in terms of promoting it with the men's groups that I know that exist in Baltimore and DC. I wanted to make sure people got a chance to attend. In fact, there was a group that I work with, wonderful Cordell Wade in Washington, D.C., has an academy called Royal Academy. And he works with these young people, he works with these young men, developing their character, developing their skill set. And also, he had formulated them into a football team. They had a football game that day, but he structured it so they would not have a game that morning, that they would have a game that afternoon so they could come from DC on a bus provided and supported by another church in the DC area so they could be there for that experience. That was about maybe 20, 25 of them. And it's that kind of collaboration we need to keep bringing up, because these events are things that are extremely important and they'll remember later on down the line. And even for folks that aren't so sure about some of their choices, and a lot of people with social or family issues, these kind of programs can help them have be more aware of some of the choices they can make and some of the resources there, because it was also a resource fair. So they knew where they could go for different kinds of resources. And that's an important part too, because discussing the problems is just one part. Resolving and addressing them is just another part. So we have, so we have the healing that we need in our communities, So, yeah, but I try and go as often as I am if I'm close by. I'm an unofficial spokesperson who makes sure if they're going to be in Ohio, I think they're going to be in Jersey, if they're going to be anywhere that I know folks, I let them know so they can attend. There was a big program we had to encourage another positive independent station, WPFW, and a gentleman who is a psychologist, great person who is now in Ohio. He said he made sure he went to the one in Ohio when it was there. So it's that kind of information collaboration, extending the branches and the leaves from the roots of these trees so that we can continue to give shade where it's needed and provide substance where it's needed as well.
Sister Malaya, I'm going to ask you the tough question. You've experienced as a mom the greatest of America, but you've also experienced the worst of America. You have a son who's nationally, internationally recognized, and then you also have a son whose life was taken prematurely. Tell me about it.
Well, first I want to talk about my son who's recognized, Lamman Rucker. I'm very, very proud of him. He also makes sure that, and for people, if the name doesn't ring a bell, most women will know him as Sheriff Troy. That was his breakout film. He was a gentleman in that. He also encouraged a woman of large frame to value herself, is what he said. If you don't value yourself, no one else will value you. And as she began to go through her process and heal, his character was there. And I got all kinds of calls in the middle of the night saying, I saw your son in this movie. He's just like that. And that's the kind of person he would be. So that was a great one. He's done one of my favorite films. It's called The Man in 3B, which is another very important film. It's more of an intrigue and mystery. He plays a different kind of character, but it's a really great film for people to look up and check that out. And then, of course, he was on Meet the Browns, which a lot of people know, of course, was produced by Tyler Perry. But Greenleaf is a very important TV show that he was in as Jacob Greenleaf, the son of the minister. And I did a lot of watch programs for that show because I found that TV should be an impetus and film for discussions about what are some of the things we should exemplify and what are the things that we should not. And Greenleaf, I did a lot of watch parties where it was a discussion, is there more hurt or healing in the church? And people came and discussed that, what was going on in theirs. And so these things have been very cathartic. So I just believe that a lot of what we do, art is healing. Art saves lives, from the music and the positive lyrics to sounds that you just enjoy that help soothe you when you don't feel, good. The inspirational songs, all that's important. So I'm very glad that he's exemplifying positive images with Black Hamptons, which is the one that's out right now. and then the Just Heal Grow program, which goes around the community. So I'm very, very proud of them. My other son, who you're right, it's one of the most devastating things to experience. Um, my father's from out of the country. His roots are Barbados, as he would say, connected to Ghana. Um, and as I started studying about other traditions in the world, a lot of people see me with my natural hair and oftentimes African influence clothing and designs. But I started out as a ballerina and an opera singer. And at a white ballet camp, um, Catherine Dunham showed up. And Catherine Dunham is a well known both anthropologist and dancer. And she brought African and particularly African Haitian dance to the arena of the world. Stormy Weather is a film that she did choreography for, that you can still find clips of her choreography there. And she became renowned, and not just renowned in the Black community, but of course, when we cross over into the white community and they give a sanction for our skills, that of course it brings another level of notoriety and understanding. But through her, I was able to study more about African dance because when I was younger, um, as a collective of community, we weren't necessarily that proud of being African. And not only that, being educated in the United States um, is really, um, uh, we know they don't tell you anything about the continent of Africa. Most people don't know that there's 54 countries. Some people think it's just one country. And the conversation, if you listen to the news tonight, they will say Africa like it's one place. They will say China, they'll say Japan, they'll say France, they'll say Germany, but they'll say Africa. And if they mention any other space, they'll say Egypt, like it's not on the continent of Africa, you know. But I say that to say that I started studying more of other forms of dance. I studied tap, which at the time I was younger, tap was Black dance, you know. But I started studying about Afro-Haitian. I studied with a guy named Olatunji. If anyone can remember this, probably over 50 years old, there's an album called Drums of Passion. That was the only album you could find on traditional drumming from the continent of Africa. And Babatunde Olatunji, he's also an ancestor now. He brought that, I think maybe in the 50s, he was one of those ones to begin to bring that. I think Mongo Santa Maria, but I think traditions from the Latin world and Chano Pozo. So these were people that brought these things to the United States because the United States was trying to ignore all the other cultures that actually exist here. But anyway, from that, I found out about African traditions. And one of the things that I heard from the Yoruba people of Nigeria is when a person is pregnant, they have 3 prayers for the pregnant woman. May God create a wonderful work of art for the parents. May the child bring honor to the family. And may the child outlive its parents. Now, when I got exposed to these, I was probably like 15 years old, and I thought, that pretty much sums up what you would want for your children. There's a million things you could pray for, but those 3 pretty much sum it up. And unfortunately, haven't had the experience now of having a child that didn't outlive me. That is a very heavy pain. And anyone that's experienced, whether it's illness, accident, or unfortunately murder, whether it's um, systemic racism and police violence or any other violence, it's a really hard thing to get through. Um, um, However, I made sure because I had a good community, having family, having a village, however you create your village, whether it's your biological family or those you consider family, because you know we all got bunches of cousins and play cousins and auntie and so in the neighborhood that looks out. Those people still exist. Those were a very much strong part of my community. So that really helped me and my faith to get through. It was rough, but I got through it. And I tell people, unfortunately, it keeps happening every day. And I run into women all the time. And I've had um, events where I encourage people to come whose children have passed on, where we celebrate the lives that they lived, no matter how short they might have been, and come together and, and relieve the grief, because you got to relieve it in order to be able to move through it.
So I did a show. I was invited guest on a show last night, and the host was really annoying me. Now I happen to know this guy, but he was annoying me. He kept saying black men are voting for Trump, and I kept telling him some black men are voting for Trump.
That's
But
right.
it brought out, the show and the other guests brought out this male, I guess you just call it misogyny. It brought out how some men, black, white, otherwise, have a problem voting for a woman. And I'm thinking to myself, the woman was your first teacher. Your mother was your first teacher. You know, what is this? Is it Willie Lynch? Is it sexism? What is this thing going around? And they want to say it's Democrat, Republican, but when you peel back the layers, it seems like some guys have a problem with voting for a very competent woman. Do you sense that?
Well, what does Sojourner Truth say? She said, I have plowed and planted and gathered in the barns, and ain't I a woman? And if only person that people feel is exalted, Jesus Christ came here through a woman. So everybody got here through a woman. So definitely the power and positiveness. However, you're right. It might be some, but it's probably very few. One of the problems that happens in the Black community is rumors they plant rumors in the Black community because they know folks will run with it, whether it's true or not. And there's lots of things that have been proven to be incorrect, including the rumor that Kamala Harris actually prosecuted a lot of Black men, particularly for weed offenses, and gave them um, uh, big sentences. That has been proven with records over and over and over again to be untrue. Daryl Hughley, I think, D.L. Hughley, was one of the first ones, because he's in California, to speak about that and speak against her in regards to that. And then he actually went and did the research. And he came back in public. He said, as strongly as I can condemn somebody, then I need to strongly apologize. He said that information is incorrect. And the same rumor is incorrect. They talk about there's more Black men in prison than
Not
there
true.
are in college. And that
Not
also
true.
is not true.
Yeah.
I mean, you
That's
can
an
go
old
to
lie.
Compton. I just came from Howard University's homecoming. You can go to any, not only the HBCUs, which there's plenty of them, but go to the other colleges and see so many people coming out of college, so many competent and skilled and trained Black men, that these rumors, again, are put out there to give a negative connotation in our communities. So I only speak positive. I speak what I want to happen. They said, speak words into power. In the beginning, it was the word. So we need to make sure that we recognize that words are powerful and what we say is important. And so I think just a few of those rumors. I was at Howard University, and they had a very, very strong Reverend Pastor Haynes, who was there, and he spoke, and he said, don't believe the hype. They put negative rumors out there. Now they put let's just say that one splotch against her resume was there. Black folks can be encouraged to run away for somebody for one splotch or one frailty, one problem. But you have another candidate that has at least 34 times felonies. There's not a Black person with a felony that could run for office, and some of them can't even vote, let alone run for the highest office in the United States. So it's crazy that people want to ignore these really obvious things. And then it was brought out, if you were going to hire somebody in terms of skill, whom would you hire? Somebody who's a lawyer, somebody who's worked in the legal system, someone who's worked both as a senator and congressman, or someone who has only been hyped up as a businessman. He's only been a con man to represent himself as all those things. He never accomplished any of those things whatsoever. And all the things he attempted to accomplish have fallen and failed. That's not the person that I would want to run my business or my country. And it's ridiculous that someone who we all watched January 6th, that was a treasonous, murderous coup. They killed 6 people. Now, there's not a person who would have done that. Listen, I know folks from the 60s that said, Ungawa Black Power, and they put them in jail and they said they were going to incite a riot, you know? So somebody that's already telling people, if I don't win, it's going to be a bloodbath and all these other things. I mean, come on, it's just ridiculous. So I think it's important that we focus on the positive. We encourage those that have second thoughts that this is a game. It's like a game when there's 2 teams playing. And you know who the better team is. That's the team that's going to work for you. That's the team that's going to produce positive for you. That's the team that has the skills and vision that you need. That's the team you need to vote for. So sitting out this game, this is too crucial a game. You can't sit out this game. This game, you got to literally be in it to win it, and make sure the person who is the most skilled and the most prolific and the person who's going to make the most positive impact on us is going to be us. It's not to compare with Obama, but similar to Obama. I mean, he had to disavow his minister in order to run for president. And this other person, you know, with orange hair, all the gangsters that he's cohabitated with and collaborated with and still working with, and probably in his cabinet, you know, nobody's having him denounce any of those, including the David Dukes and the other extreme racists that exist. So it is disappointing that that's what's going on, but that's why education is so important. And we got to continue to go out and talk and encourage folks to recognize that you need someone that's going to work for you. And don't believe the hype, because they'll put it out there if you're going to swallow it. They'll put those pills out there. You know,
he was really egregious yesterday. He was talking about Arnold Palmer's sexual parts. I could not believe this man.
And can you believe that not only that's when we know how racist this world is, because there is not a Black man who could have said those things in public and not immediately be vilified, fired, and probably put in jail. Come on now. You know, it's ridiculous. And that's what people need to pay attention to. And why do they put negative information out? Because they hope it's going to pull people away. So, you know, and I'm sure there's some people being paid to put this information out there.
Well, we got some information today in our 9 a.m. show from Professor Larry Gibson. He's a law professor, noted Black, probably the most well-known Black law professor in Maryland, and Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. Women Democrats are the top voters. And he said that there are a lot of white women voting for Kamala. They're just not telling their husbands.
That's probably true. And there'll probably be more of them as well. I think right now, literally, it's a moral compass. I mean, there's a clear division between good and evil. And I'm not one to often use the term the devil at all, let alone loosely. But you definitely have the difference between, you know, a Satanist person in terms of everything they've said they've done, everything that have been recorded they've done, and even the stuff that they bragged about they've done that are very injurious to human beings, injurious to women, injurious to the community, and even the way, besides January 6th of treason, he should already be under the jail. How he treated the Central Park
I was
Five.
going to ask you about Yusuf Salam,
Man, I'm so grateful he is now, you
city
know,
councilman.
yes, absolutely. And I'm glad that he survived that atrocious, because we all know, if we haven't been in prison, we've heard enough stories, and we know how horrendous it can be for people to get through and thrive and come out well. You know,
You know,
that's so
when we
so
do the
so
when we do
important.
the Black Wall Streets in New York, one of our go-to people is Mr. Victor Pate,
Okay.
and he's a strong advocate for the formerly incarcerated. Believe you me, he done sidekicked me up in that little guy. He done sidekicked me. No, you don't say ex-felons, returning citizens. You say formerly incarcerated. The language is very important there, but
Absolutely.
he got us one honoree, a young man who built, now he was formerly incarcerated, but he built a library on Rikers Island.
And there's a lot of positive stories in regards to that. And again, those are the ones we don't hear about. I also work with Lakichi Taifa attorney as well, who's well known for working with the Innocence Projects and a number of other programs too.
Where's she based?
She's based in Washington, D.C. Now, she travels all over the world, but she's based in Washington, D.C. She and I are working on a reparations education project. I have to send you some information about. And it's specifically focused on artists and athletes, for artists and athletes to state that they're for reparations, because artists and athletes have helped move a lot of movements forward. Artists and athletes help when it came to being against apartheid, especially during South Africa time. Artists and athletes have been really important. When rap first came out, it was always positive rap. It was encouraging rap. It was things that were telling you positive things to do. And there's a young guy by the name of Yellow Pain, Pain, who has a very positive rap about your vote does count. He also has one that says your vote don't count, but it's to get you to click either way. But what he does is he breaks it down, and it's like, you need to know that people who are put in presidential positions don't make the laws. It's the people that are in their senators, congressmen. Those are the ones you need to vote for. He says you don't go back to those elections. That's every 2 years, you know. You need to know who your judges are in your area. You need to know who your council people are. And if you get a chance to pull up his piece, it's so eloquently stated, so well stated, and again, it's stated with music and rap, so it's very, very educational. You know, and I listen to it like every other day. I post it up on my page probably a few times a week, because it's really important. It's just like, we must learn. And those are the things. They're not teaching civics in schools anymore. People don't know how laws are passed and what comes up. They don't know how all these things, occur. So we need to get behind this election. We need to get Kamala in, and then we need to make sure that we go back, we vote for senators and congressmen in our area. We need to make sure we encourage more progressive people who are really servant leaders to be there, because we're hiring them to do what we need to do. And when people on the ground get involved, that's when things change. And that's everything from, I think Obama's election was spearheaded by people giving $5, $10, and $20, not just billions of dollars. And so we need to remember that those are small. I mean, South Africa, we never thought Nelson Mandela would make it out of jail.
27 years.
27 years, but them people persevered. They're like, no, we're not taking this. And eventually, and just like all the situations that we have, got ourselves through. I mean, we literally have been on the battlefield firing line. Them civil rights days, for the younger people that weren't physically there. I mean, if you've seen those tapes, you can see that folks are not just marching. They are marching against everything from billy clubs and heavy hoses that are, like being knocked down by a tank sometimes. Those are very important times to remember. And even Rosa Parks, which is presented as a very calmly polite woman who was just tired and wouldn't get up.
She's from
Rosa
Detroit,
Parks,
right?
she had been a progressive political activist, she and her husband, her whole life, So just that kind of misinformation as well.
So what is your plan for the rest of 2024?
Well, one thing is to make sure that I encourage people to educate your own, each one teach one, learn what you don't know, and then share it with others. There's sources such as Hidden Colors, which is a series of DVDs that talk about a lot of the history that has been hidden so that we don't know. Even films like Hidden Figures, it's an important film to watch because that's contemporary times. Those women were existing. That's just in the 60s. There's people in your family that were around during that time frame. And I remember when I found out that Katherine Johnson lived down the street from my daughter-in-law. I was like, and I'm sure she didn't talk about it. And, we had conversations and we thought, and then we also came up with the conclusion, if they spoke about that, they probably would not still be alive. Can you imagine if they said, hey, we helped bring down the astronauts from, we did the calculations, all those things. And there's so many inventions that Black folks invented, but they weren't given the patent for it. Or if you work for a company and you create something, we all know sometimes it's the company that'll get the credit. You won't get the credit. So that's happened, unfortunately, so many times. So we need to educate ourselves. And I'm always encouraging people to educate yourself and then educate your children, educate your neighbors, educate your family, educate anybody listen. You can be in the bus, you can be on the pulpit, you can be, anywhere, sitting at the playground, start sharing. At the barbershop, the hairdresser, where conversations are brought up that are erroneous. It's important to share the facts so people can find the information. And we can verify a lot of stuff with our phones now. So far, a lot of the true information is still available if you seek it out. The second thing I'm going to be doing is, again, encouraging the reparation and education project. So people can look up reparationseducationproject.org or REP. And we're looking to encourage artists to say that they're for reparations. Because remember, We Are the World, that helped as a song to let people know about the whole AIDS epidemic, because before that song came out, people were dying and folks weren't quite sure why. They weren't letting it out that they had actually let this virus out amongst folks. And they thought, again, it was just going to stay in a certain community, which it did not. But also Stevie Wonder's song. I remind folks that Happy Birthday song was a song of activism, because Martin Luther King's birthday was not going to be another holiday. There are people who said, we're not having a holiday for a Black man. We're not having, clearly stated. And so Stevie Wonder just came up with a song. I never understood how there'd be a man who could, and there would not be a day that would celebrate you. And that whole song, if you listen to those lines of that words, people now just sing the chorus, but I usually go through that song with folk, family, and friends. And those words are very astute. And it was that song that moved the movement and moved the needle. So we were able to get his birthday a holiday. Otherwise,
the time is overdue for people like me and you who know the way to truth. It's love and harmony to all God's children. It would be a great event, and the whole day would be spent in full remembrance of what? Of the day you came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I remember when that album came out, Master Blaster. And my mother played played that for my 18th birthday. Happy birthday.
Wow. Yeah, but before that time, folks weren't planning on, and Arizona was the last place to have Martin Luther King's birthday acknowledged as a holiday. Isn't
Guess
that
what I
crazy?
learned just yesterday? That Saudi Arabia ended slavery in 1971.
Wow.
Well, actually, 1967. United Arab Emirates, where Dubai is, ended slavery in 1971. You know, so many of us want to go to Dubai, want to go to
Right.
Dubai. And I'm like, do you know where you want to go? Did you do the research?
That's right. Have you
We're
done the
such
research?
followers.
And who do you know that's living over there? And how are they living? And what's the situation like? So I know some folks who have gone to live and have come back. I do know some people who are still there, mostly young men that seem to be comfortable over there. I'm not sure about any of the women that I've known that have been there. I hadn't had opportunity to have discussions with them. That would be interesting. People who
So,
visit seem to be fine, but you can go a lot of places and visit and be comfortable and then leave out.
tell me about our mental health as a people.
Well, I think one of the first things is that we all need to speak what we want to happen in our lives. Stop focusing on the positive. It's been proven that what you focus on multiplies. As an educator, even quote unquote in a classroom, if you encourage a student, let's say they're running down the hallway, you say, please walk, as opposed to don't run, which is a negativity. Just affirm what you want to happen. Please walk. Thank you for walking. Things of that sort. That changes the whole dynamics and that can change the game. And also, when it comes to even disruptive behavior in the classroom, you can acknowledge those people that, oh, thank you. I see, Jaquan, you got your book open, you're on the right page. Okay, I see you working diligently, that kind of thing. And then you can say to Shaquan, you say, okay, I see Shaquan's got her paper. I think she's almost finished with the activity. You know, focusing on the positive and giving the attention to the positive as opposed to talking to the person who's not focused, not on task, because then they're getting attention. And what do they want to do? Get attention. Most people want attention. So reinforce the positive things, including at home in terms of parenting. It's the same thing. And I had a very good example. My father was an older man, so he passed by the time I was a teenager, but I had uncles who were there to stand in, giving us away at weddings and stuff. And I saw the behavior of encourage you when you did things that were productive, and you had consequences when you made choices that weren't productive. And the more positive things you did, the more not only rewards you got, and sometimes it was just acknowledgement, then sometimes the more freedoms you got. So we know if we tell you to stay on the street, and you do that, then and you do that consistently, then I know if I give you your bike and I say, okay, well, right around the corner, but we know that be back when the street lights come on. We know if you can do that and be back when the street light, okay, then I can, trust you, building up that trust. Those things are very, very important. So I think we have to focus on that positive. We have to give folks who need assistance. And we have to encourage people to eat less sugar. Sugar and cocaine have the same chemical breakdown. I'm talking about refined sugar. Most of us don't have access to grabbing sugar cane out of the field and chewing on it. If you've ever had that opportunity, you can't chew on that sucker but so long because it doesn't taste that good. However, refined sugar and cocaine have the same chemical properties except an additional nitrogen atom. So therefore, there's sugar in so much food that a lot of the processed foods that are cheaper to eat sometimes. I mean, you can go to some of these fast food places and you can get what now it's two for $5, you know. But some of them you can spend $10 on what used to be a 25-cent hamburger. You can go eat some real food at a healthful restaurant.
It
That's going
sounds like them
to
crystal burgers.
yeah, or even a place that the food's not sitting there for a while, where they cook things as people come in. That's important. I know everybody's in a rush. Trust and believe. but learn how to steam vegetables, stir fry foods, steam rice. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to change because what we eat, you know, uh,
We
Dick
are what we
Rager's
eat.
book, Elijah Muhammad's book, "You Are What You Eat," then you really are what you eat. And most of the things that ail our families and our health are things we can't control. So we need to take the discipline. Discipline is doing what you know you need to do, even when you don't want to. And that's also maturity. So we have to be mature. We have to also raise our families to also make some of those choices as well. And when children are approached with healthy foods as choices, and that's what they have predominant, which is how I chose mine, that's what they choose. So we need to do that more because that adds a lot to our mental health. And again, finding a spiritual practice
I was
that
going to ask you about these preachers.
yeah, find a spiritual practice. There's so many traditions in the world. There's not just one. And I don't believe that Jesus would tell you that if you don't believe in him, that he has a problem with that, because Jesus told you that the God is within you. And so we have to recognize that. And there's some proverbs from different nations around the world that said, the God is within you, that you are an evolving God. And that if you recognize that everything is divine, then you won't mistreat people, you won't mistreat animals, you won't mistreat nature, plants, because we need all this stuff to grow. I mean, look at these two horrific hurricanes that just went by, and there's probably another one brewing. I mean, I know people who got everything obliterated.
Mm.
There are towns that got totally obliterated. That means if the restaurant's not there and the grocery store's not there, wherever people worked, where are they getting their money from over the next few months? I mean, we're talking about now until New Year's. None of these homes can be rebuilt. We've seen the obliteration of these things. It's nothing but wood. I mean, I've seen pictures where the houses are just, it's not funny, but they were floating down the street, the whole house, let alone the cars and the
I said,
buses.
I ain't going to be able to do it.
Yeah, so we really have to, again, mindset. So it's important. I meditate and pray. Meditate is listening to God. Praying is talking to God. I spend time in nature. I talk about how nature is my medicine. I'll go sit by the river. I'll go sit in a park. I'll go sit anywhere that's serene to be for a while. Even yesterday, Howard's homecoming, after we had church service, we all sat outside in the sun because it was just beautiful and nice and warm. And, just that alone. The full moon was out a couple of days ago, and that moon was just so
I
bright and the
saw
sky was so clear, you
it.
know.
Big.
Yes, yes. And they had what do you call it? Meteor showers. So you could watch the phenomenon of that if you're in a place where the light pollution is not too bad. But if not, the moon shows through. I mean, just admiring things that we can't control it or positive. I mean, the moon is up there going around the earth, and the earth is going
I
around the sun.
know. And that's why I want to ask you, why are they digging up samples of the moon? China, Russia, Elon Musk. Why are they messing with the moon?
But you know what? Those folks like to interfere with everything. So I think it's important that even though we have the capability to go places, we need to recognize that where we live, the people had systems. I'm not a farmer, I'm a city girl, but I know the farmers would put some of their best crops and put them back into the earth as a way to feed the earth for the next crop. I also know that they also will alternate where they plant things so they can allow the earth and the soil to rest and then use maybe another plot. So those things are very important. So we've got to exercise even those kind of things. Trust and believe. I'm learning a little bit on how to grow some food because we all might need to have a garden in our backyard pretty soon,
Good
because
deal.
we
As
don't
we
know.
wind down, any thoughts that we haven't crossed? Because we've talked about everything from Just Heal Bro to mental health to Brooklyn to the Pittsburgh Courier and the Amsterdam News. Tell me a fond memory of your daddy.
My dad was a very prolific man. He was quiet. My dad was probably close to 60 when I was born, and I have a younger sister. Okay. So, um, but he was a quiet person and but very meticulous in what he did. You know, being an editor, you have to be meticulous in what you do. Being a photographer, he told me about taking pictures, make sure that the sun is behind your camera as you shoot, so the light's going into the camera, you know. Um, However, when he had something to say, quiet people, when they have something to say, it's always prolific. And every once in a while, he would say something and crack a joke that was real clear. He was paying attention to what was going on, and it was wonderful. So, but I also want to speak. I have daughters as well, and I want to speak about one of them who just had a birthday, a milestone birthday, and her name is Malaya Agotime. And the poem goes like this: The full moon shone, and my daughter came to greet me. Humble, strong, determined, bold, the world not ready to behold a child as forceful as the moon. Night casts out and people sleeping enter dawn and freshness, day and light. The moon and her have much in common. Her being beams with magic light, gleaming, glowing through the night. The moon might be subtle, there's no fanfare, but all knows their energy everywhere. She's here to lead and undertake, and your life's work is sure to make you think and know. We're all ready. She's ready. You're ready now.
How can people get in touch with you, Nana?
The best way is Facebook, Nana Malaya Rucker Operabia. If you see my face, if you get the Nana Malaya part right and you get the Rucker part in there, it'll show up. Otherwise, that's probably the best way. And then if people text, they can text this number, 240 They can text that number to me. Text is best. And I'll respond to a text faster than any email that you find with my name on it. So, but the
Nana Malay
Facebook is the fastest way for us.
is
That's the one I utilize the most. But I
it
really
is.
appreciate being here, and I'll look forward to working with you continually. And
We'll
uh,
see you Friday. Howard
absolutely,
University School of
absolutely,
Business.
and we're gonna and you're gonna help me make my Malaya's magazine come back to life as well.
Absolutely. I think you should have not just your show. I mean, I can only imagine the other people who you'll inspire to get a show. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we can't wait to see you Friday.
All right, share the positive information. Accentuate the positive. You know, your presence is present. It might be all you have to give. Your presence is a present. A committed life you should live. Give with honor, give with blessings, give with care, because your presence is a present.
You've been watching the Mental Health Show. If I think better, I do better. My name's Donnie Glover. We'll see you Wednesday at noon. Good afternoon.